Dude, they're in. Oh my god, instant melt.
Yeah, you're almost up.
Oh, I'm almost up.
You're almost up.
I'm gonna go up and
I'm getting out. Ooh. Get out of here. Go for it.
Oh, they're lagging. You see them?
Yeah.
Run, Forrest, run! Run, Forrest!
That's my shot.
I'm moving the healing station.
Yo, stop pulling your core, man.
Yeah, they just did it again.
Yo, it's probably his Cronus Max lagging him out.
Dude, he's fit. Look at him.
Yo, this Cronus Max isn't working for him.
Now leaving the contaminated area.
What is going on, everybody? It is your boy Nothing But Skills, and today I'm bringing you guys another division video. Today's video is going to be talking about what I consider one of the most underused, underappreciated, and underestimated builds in the game. Now, the reason I've been playing with a lot of different builds during my streams and just when I'm on the game is because I feel that the main three builds right now for PvP, which you guys know are Striker, Nomad, and Predator Mark, are way too overused. And I feel that Striker right now is really overused and doesn't require much skill anymore. When you can build your stack up to 100%, I feel that you have that self-healing, and then you also have that incredible damage. If you guys want to see what kind of damage you will be doing, head to the range, build a 100% stack, look at your firearms, and you're going to see that the amount of damage that you put out with Striker is just very, very impressive. But in return, with having so much healing, having so much damage, it's just an OP build. It's overpowered, and I feel like it doesn't take a lot of skill. For me, when I play a game, I always want to challenge myself. So challenging myself with this build is probably the best build that you guys can really challenge yourself and still be really effective. I have dropped so many people with this build, and they have no idea what I'm really running. They probably even think I'm running Striker with the house, but that's not even the build I'm running. But before we get into that, remember, if you guys enjoy this video, hit the thumbs up. If you guys are new to my channel, it's the first time you're watching the video, hit that subscribe button, turn the notification bell off so when I do release a video, you guys get notified. And if you guys have any questions after watching this build, use the comment section down below. So let's get into this build, and as I am showing you off this build, I will be showing you clips here and there, and the reason why is because I want you guys to see that this build is really effective, not just in that initial clip that I showed you, that I have done this multiple times, and I fight people 1v1, and when I do run into groups and then one guy gets away from the group and he tries to fight me 1v1, it's game over for him. So let's get into the build, guys. The first thing I want you guys to see is I am running primary firepower of 415,000, that's firearms of 6,500, toughness of 484,000, that's stamina of 6,500, and then skill power of 88,000, that's electronics of 2,961. Now, why am I choosing to run 5-piece Banshee versus the 6-piece Banshee, and why am I running 5 pieces versus running 4 pieces or 3 pieces? Well, let me explain that to you in a second, because I've seen other people run other builds which I don't think are really effective in PvP in the DZ. Now, you may be able to run this in last stand and skirmish, but for the DZ you need to at least have 5 pieces, and you need to have those high-end gloves, and we'll talk about that in a second. So let's get into the 5-piece and talk about what it really does. The set 2 bonus gives you 20% looted DZ funds, which you really don't care about, but hey, that's what we get with Banshee. Set bonus 3 is what we really care about and what a lot of people do like running, and that's why they run the 3-piece. So for set bonus 3, you get 10% damage to targets out of cover. Now that is amazing, because most of the time when you're PvPing, players are out of cover, right? So they get that extra 10% damage to targets out of cover. So set bonus 4, where it really gets interesting, while Rogue, all ammo is completely refilled every 30 seconds, which means is you'll never run out of ammo when you are Rogue. Damage is also reduced from non-Rogue players by 10%, which is great, but if you do fight Striker builds that have 100% stack, that's going to hurt no matter if you have 10% or 20% here. That is why it's very hard to stay alive with this build, and if you have a dedicated healer, it makes it a little bit easier. Now, why this build is really good is when you're not Rogue, and say you run against groups that are Manhunt, or you just run against other Rogue players, while you're not Rogue, damage to Rogue players is increased by 10%. Now, the key thing I like doing a lot is I'll go out there, I'll let the players kill me, think that they got me, and they're like, oh yeah, we killed Nothing But Skills, and then I come out, and then the bonus is increased by 20% for 10 minutes after being killed. So just the first time you get killed, you get that additional 20%. When you stack that additional 20% towards Rogue players and the 10% damage to targets out of cover, you're hitting pretty hard, and that's why this build hits so hard. The reason why I like running the 5-piece is because I get an additional 5% damage to targets out of cover. So that's a total of 15% damage to targets out of cover. While you're not Rogue, you get the 10% extra damage. If they do kill you once, then you get that additional 20% damage. That's why it's a really, really good build to run. What I've seen a lot of people do is a lot of them will switch out the 5-piece and they'll only run a 3-piece and they'll run Barrett's Bulletproof Vest. But the first thing that is wrong with this is that this only rolls up to 1272 firearms. If you look at my Banshee, it's maxed out at 1401. That's a big difference, especially when you're in the DZ. Also, another thing with Barrett's Bulletproof Vest, since this build is so squishy and you take a lot of damage, a lot of times you will be popping your support station, you will be popping your booster shot, or if you're using a disruptor, you'll be using that consistently. So yes, you are going to get that extra 5% damage the first time you pop a skill, but the chances of you having 2 skills never on cooldown is probably more likely than not. So you'll only be getting 2 skills on cooldown, increases your armor by 10%. So even if you were going to run 4 Banshee and a Barrett's Bulletproof Vest, I just don't think the trade-off you get for that with the firearms only rolling to 1272 and barely ever getting that extra 5% damage. So that's why running this as a 5-piece works a lot better in my opinion. Now, another thing I see people doing is on the mask, they'll run a refresh mask or they'll run a tenacious mask. So tenacious, when you pop a med kit, you get the extra 10% damage. Yeah, that's pretty cool. But again, it only rolls to 1272 versus this rolls to 1401. So that's a big, big difference right there. So now that I showed you how some people run theirs with the Barrett's and then tenacious mask or refresh mask and why I don't feel that's the best way to run it, especially in the DZ since you're losing so much firearms, let's break down my build. So for the chest piece, it's road stamina, it's maxed out at 1401. The major attributes are 11% exotic damage resilience, 16,000 health, and then 56% ammo capacity. I think those are the best 2 rolls you can have, especially for this build, since you still want to have some type of exotic damage resilience for that Predator's Mark bleed, even with the tweaks to 1.8.2. For the mods, I'm running firearm mods with 1% critical hit chance. For the mask, I'm running a Banshee Shadow mask. It's also road stamina. The major attribute is 4% critical hit chance, and the minor attribute is 17% burn resistance. Now for the mods, they're firearm mods with 1% critical hit chance. For the knee pads, they're also road stamina. The major attribute is critical hit damage. Now, some of you guys, if you really want to, you can take away this critical hit damage and put health on here. I just really like having critical hit damage on my knee pads and backpack. I just feel with this build, since you only have 6,500 firearms, you do want to have a little bit more critical hit chance. Now, for the minor attributes, I'm running bleed, shock, and burn resistance. And then for the mods, I'm running firearm mods with 1% critical hit chance, and then performance mod with 5% support station healing speed. Now, for the backpack, this is road firearms, so I do finally have a piece that's road firearms, and then the major attribute is 9% critical hit damage. Now for the mods, these are firearm mods with 1% critical hit chance, and then performance mod with 5% support station healing speed, and then the minor attribute is 54% ammo capacity. This is another piece you can roll health on there, and that is the max roll you can get on the support station healing speed. If you were going to ask that, it's 5%. So I did stack that throughout this build. Now for the gloves, which make this build and why I think it's better than running the 6-piece, and we'll talk about the 6-piece in a second. I like running these Savage gloves because they give you an additional critical hit chance is increased by 7% against targets out of cover. So after we add up all my critical hit chance, then we'll add an additional 7% critical hit chance on top of that. So once we get to that critical hit chance number, we'll add that 7% and then that'll be my final number. Now for the attributes, my major attributes are SMG damage, since the house is going to be my primary, and then I'm running critical hit chance and critical hit damage. Now if you want to run a lightweight M4, remove the SMG damage and put assault rifle damage. Now for the holster, I'm rolling critical hit chance on here because I want to stack as much critical hit chance on this build as possible, because my goal with this build is to melt them before they melt me. And as you saw in a lot of my clips, even when I'm fighting strikers who have a stack, I'm able to drop them before they can drop me, as long as I can hit my shots. Now if I miss shots, that's when I will go down. That's why this build I feel takes a lot more skill, because if I can hit all my shots, the player in front of me will drop. Now if I miss some shots, well, that's a different story, and that's why you need to have some kind of skill to actually play this build. Now one other thing I did want to talk about is the 6-piece, since I didn't talk about it at the beginning. So why am I choosing to run a 5-piece with the Savage gloves over the 6-piece? Well, the reason why is because I feel that the 6-piece is so situational. So here it goes. While rogue, the timer to clear manhunt status is decreased by 5% for every group member within 15 meters. All rogue status actions that result in a rank up are doubled, and rewards for clearing manhunt statuses are improved. Now, I don't really think this is really beneficial. It's really not a benefit to this build for me putting out damage, right? And then the next piece is, while not rogue, damage to manhunt status players is increased by 2% for each manhunt level. So if they have rank 5, that's an additional 10% damage. I still think that's situational, because if they're only rogue, then you don't take advantage of this, where my Savage gloves I can take advantage all the time, and you could switch back and forth if you wanted to when you do see those rank 5. I just think it's too much work, so having the Savage Gloves is a little bit better, and I think it will be better for you guys. And also the performance mod is 5% support station healing speed. Now for the house, which I think is great for this build because it puts out a lot of damage and it has decent range. The critical hit chance is 23%. The base damage is 20,000.7k, so almost 21,000. The talents that I really recommend for this build because you're going to hit a lot of critical hit chance shots is have Deadly on here because critical hit damage is increased by 15%. Always have responsive because with this build you will be face tanking a lot, or you will be up in their face. You're not really face tanking because you're more squishing than not, but you'll be fighting close range. So responsive is great. Damage is increased by 10% when closer than 10 meters to the target. And then card counter is probably one of the best talents in the game, and it only comes on the house. One half of the magazine does 20% increased damage. The half which deals increased damage flips after 15 seconds or when the magazine is empty. Now the way I have this modded is I'm running a pro red dot sight with 18% critical hit damage, 6% headshot damage, and 2.5 critical hit chance. Allow vent break with 18% critical hit damage, 6% headshot damage, 3% critical hit chance. A small grip of 19% critical hit damage, stability, and accuracy. For the extended magazine, I'm running magazine size, critical hit chance, and rate of fire. Now for my secondary, you could either use a lightweight M4 or LVOA. Same exact guns, just a little bit different recoil pattern. This one has 24% enemy armor damage. Base damage is 18.2k, so it's a little bit less than my house. The talents I'm running are responsive. Damage is increased by 10% when closer than 10 meters to the target. I have Deadly on here. Critical hit damage is increased by 15%. And then I have Unforgiving. Missing health segments increase your damage. One missing segment is plus 10% damage. Two missing segments is plus 25% damage. So that's why Unforgiving works really good with this build. So if you do want to run a lightweight M4 or you want to run a LVOA, you really can. You just have to be able to really control it. What I would recommend is maybe putting some stability on your backpack, or maybe running a stability mod on the weapon itself. And for the skills, I'm running an immune box. If you guys don't know, immune boxes or support stations, when you explode them, their heal is going to be a lot bigger than what you'll get from a booster shot or overdose. Now my booster shot's only going to have 39,000 self heal, and my immune box is going to give me a lot more than that. Not only that, since I am running those 5% support station healing speed mods, it's going to give me 2,273 health points every second, which is really good. Now what I recommend you guys doing is having an immune box and leaving it down on the ground when you start your battle, and then as soon as you really need it, then you explode it. It's also great for when those teams like to run shock turrets. It prevents you from getting shocked, and then also if you're fighting Predator's Mark, you also will be immune to that bleed. So that's why it's great to have the immune box in 1.8.2. So now for the second skill, this is really up to you guys, and it depends on how you want to run your skills. I either run a booster shot or I run a disruptor. And the reason I run the booster shot is because it temporarily increases your damage and damage resistance every time you explode it, and this comes back every 51 seconds. Even though it only heals me for 39,000, that's still pretty good. I mean, I'm really just using it for that extra damage and that damage resistance. Now if I'm running a team or I'm fighting multiple strikers, I like running disruptor. Now for the first talent, I'm running adrenaline, and this might be a talent you weren't running before 1.8.2, but I highly recommend you guys switch to it because medkits now give 7 seconds of immunity from status effects. So when those pred marks put you on bleed the first time, if you pop a medkit, there's 7 seconds where they can't re-bleed you. Now another one I love running is critical save. You make it during low health to increase damage resistance by 20% for 10 seconds. If I'm in a group, I'm definitely going to put combat medic on. Now if I'm running solo, this is a wasted talent, so I run precision instead, and that's headshot a hostile to pulse them for 10 seconds, and that gives you additional critical hit chance and critical hit damage on top of whatever you already have on your build. And the final talent I always run is strike back. Reach low health to reduce active skill cooldowns by 20%, so that helps get that disruptor back, that booster shot back, that immune box back a lot faster, especially with this build where you will be fighting at low health a lot of the time. If we go into the character, you're going to see my critical hit chance is 50.50%, so 50%. Now if you add the Savage Gloves on top of this, it's 57%. And the max critical hit chance you can have on a build is 60%. So without a pulse, without running precision, I'm already at 57%. So I only need 3% to be fully maxed out with this build. That's why this build hits so hard. Now critical hit damage is at 130%, and that's also without having a pulse and without having precision. Almost 60% of the time you're hitting damage of 130%. Now that is amazing, guys. That's why I hit so hard. My max health is 323,000, which is pretty good for PvP. My armor mitigation is maxed out at 33%, and that's what you want to have, especially if you're going to go PvPing in the dark zone. My exotic damage resilience is a little bit low at 11%, but I decided with this build I want to stack a little bit more critical hit chance, and with the talent, adrenaline, and then the immune box, I felt that even if I ran against Predator's Mark, I would be perfectly fine dropping my box or hitting a med kit for 7 seconds. At least I have time to drop that Predator's Mark. My bleed resistance is 33%, my burn resistance is 50%, my shock resistance is 33%. And that pretty much wraps up this build, guys. If you guys enjoy this build, let me know in the comment section. If you guys test this build out and you guys have a lot of fun with it, let me know. I honestly think it's probably the funnest build to run at the moment, and the best way to run this is in a team if you can, guys. I personally had the most fun when I had a dedicated healer. So even with me, a dedicated healer, and then I had a guy switch back from striker and banshee, we were taking out groups. At the very beginning, you saw we had a dedicated healer who had no DPS. He was running high electronics. I was putting out all the DPS, and then our other teammate was putting out some DPS. He was running striker, and then I think he was switching to banshee every now and then. So he was going back and forth. I wasn't 100% sure what build he was running. We fought 3 strikers and a final measure healer, and you can see what we were doing to them. So yeah, that's why I think this build is really good. I feel like it takes the most skill out of every build in the game for PvPing, and it's really good at the end of the day. This build is really underestimated. I don't see a lot of people running it, and I feel that this is a perfect way for you to run it. You could run more firearms, but then I feel you're going to be a little bit too squishy. If you just want to go out there and put out pure damage, you can go run high firearms. But I feel like if you want to be an all-around player and you can run this by yourself, chasing down rogues if you catch them, firearms of 6,500, stamina of 6,500, and then electronics of 2,900 are perfect, guys. Let me know what you guys think. Also, I want to give a big shout out to everybody who's been supporting this channel. The sub count just keeps going up. So I know you guys are sharing this with your friends. You're telling your family and friends to hit that sub button, and I really appreciate it. Thank you guys again, and I'm glad you guys are enjoying all my Division 1 content, Division 2 content, SOCOM content, H1Z1 content. Everything I bring into this channel, you guys seem to be really liking, and I'm honestly very, very thankful. I'm humbled, and what you guys are doing for my channel, I don't know how I can thank you guys. So thank you guys again. And remember, if you guys enjoyed this video, hit the thumbs up. If you guys have any questions, use the comment section down below and hit that subscribe button. If you don't see me in Last Stand, if you don't see me in Skirmish, if you don't see me in the Dark Zone, it's only a matter of time. Nothing but skills out.